Hey everybody, welcome to What Culture Gaming. E3 coverage continues. Today we're talking about Ubisoft. I'm Scott, I'm joined by Josh.
Hello.
And Ewan.
Hello again.
Again, as a big Ubisoft fan. Now the first thing to talk about is the most obvious thing, which clearly Ubisoft didn't want to talk about until it leaked, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Now we've seen a tiny little smidge of gameplay from their tweet. What do you guys think, having not played Origins, I don't think?
It was a good kick, wasn't it?
It was a very Sparta-like kick.
Yeah, I wonder what comic they took that from. You know? I mean, I'm not going to judge.
If you're going to do Greek history, you're going to do your whole Thermopylae style, Centurion style thing.
Yeah.
I want to see some kicks off some cliffs.
I'm excited because it looks like it could be the Peloponnesian War. You know, you've got Sparta and Athens going at loggerheads against each other. I didn't play Origins, but I'm excited about it.
It sounds
Odyssey,
good. You know history things. The only thing we've seen so far is the key ring showing a Centurion helmet. We've seen the dude kicking off the cliff. Kind of confirms that you're going to be, well, didn't confirm, but it shows that there's going to be Spartan warriors with all done up in Roman gladiatorial combat gear.
That sounds good.
It does sound good. The other thing, which we've been talking about a long time, there's a couple of videos on this, is Splinter Cell. Now, they haven't officially done anything with this other than there's a tease at the end of Wildlands. We've seen different trademarks pop up left and right. It's been rumoured for ages. Michael Ironside was back doing the voice during the Ghost Recon DLC. Mm-hmm. It makes the most sense that Splinter Cell returns. And if they don't dim all the lights and just have the goggles appear with the noise, then what is even the point of gaming at all?
That noise, I want that played on repeat the rest of my life. I thought the tease at the end of Wildlands was interesting because it kind of prophesied a doomsday scenario, which if you're familiar with Clancy's books, in the wrong segment again. A lot of his stuff revolved around nuclear weapons going AWOL. So yeah, I'm interested. If they're going to retire him, maybe do that.
Maybe do a bit of that. Because the end of the Ghost Recon thing ended with Sam being called to chase down, what they call it, they have a nickname for a nuke that's gone missing.
A football? I think the football's the detonation device.
There was a name for it, but basically that DLC ended with him going off to track down some nukes. And one of the leaked potential titles for the new Splinter Cell was Splinter Cell Apocalypse, which obviously lines up in a leaky mentality of, I'll just call it that. Yeah. But at the same time, Ubisoft have been building a lot of steam around Splinter Cell, and it makes a lot of sense for him to come back. How they then tie that to their whole living world, open world thing is where it gets really thorny.
That is the problem, because I'm so excited for the Splinter Cell to come back. It's been way too long, but if it comes back, there's a good chance it's going to be open world and a sandbox and a living, breathing world, which could be all right.
If Phantom Pain can do it, then maybe we can have Splinter Cell Pain.
Phantom Pain got around it by dropping you in specific places, and then obviously you had the horse and you could drive around. I don't see that being the same thing with this, but Blacklist at least let you pick missions off like a big board thing, so there could be a way for you to just pick stuff and drop in, and the missions are Hitman style open-ended.
That was exactly what I was about to say. If they do it Hitman style, where you get these like kind of self-contained sandboxes as opposed to like levels, that would be really cool. You could pick them off your little board, you could go in, there's lots of different like infiltration routes, lots of way to play. I think that could satiate Ubisoft's just bloodlust for open world games and without actually giving us like sort of Wildlands style huge expansive place to explore.
Also Kestrel potentially coming back, which would be cool. If you remember from Convictions co-op mode, you find them at the end of Blacklist co-op mode. You send you shit from then on. So Kestrel,
they've got a lot of boxes to tick, not to turn this into an entire Splinter Cell video, but Splinter Cell's multiplayer has a life of its own, and it would be really cool for them to debut some new modes for that, or at least the return of Spies and Mercs, and all that kind of stuff. Let's also talk about Beyond Good and Evil 2, something that showed way ahead of when it was ready to be showed. And if you then read up on the general sort of state of Michel Ancel, he'd barely even started development when they announced that was going to be happening. And we got a very, very primitive early look at.
It looked pretty.
It looked nice. I wasn't a fan of how sweary it was. It was too over the top. It was very try-hard, edgy, and like that. And I just thought it was a bit meh.
For me, I think it's gonna miss out on this year's. Right. I think Ubisoft has done all they need to do with that project. They've announced that, yep, it's real, and yep, it's in development, but also we've just started it, you know what I mean? Like, they need to show it again next year in a more confident way, in a more robust way, where it's like, okay, this is actually what you'll be doing, this is the story, rather than just
I was going to say, I think they're in the mentality right now where they have to feel as though they show it each year because they had so many complaints. People are going to go panicky. It's like, we've gone Good and Evil, has been cancelled, and I can kind of see why they're panicked into just showing it as much as they can.
There's been some other stuff leaked as to what Michel Ancel wants to do with it, and it seems like he's aiming for a No Man's Sky type thing, where you'll go and explore a bunch of different territories and lands and things like that. Fine, No Man's Sky obviously didn't land as it wanted. It resulted in Ubisoft cancelling their version of a No Man's Sky game, and it's kind of interesting just to see. But another thing that's worth pointing out is just the realities of game development. Sometimes different teams have to prioritize a vertical slice, which is the industry term for make this one level try and approximate what it's going to be in the end, and we'll just show that off even if the rest of the game isn't up to scratch yet. And Ubisoft are definitely a studio that prioritizes that way of thinking, or at least they have in the past. So we could see a more feature-complete looking Beyond Good and Evil 2, even if the full version isn't that. We've also talked about Wild before, which is what's his chop's other game, that may be Ansel as well.
It is his other game that should be coming out for PlayStation, but we haven't seen it in years, so who knows if that's even in development anymore.
It's weird. The biggest takeaway thing from that when I first saw the footage was just the really cool bear noise that he made to summon the bear, which hopefully we can cut to. If we can't, it's hilarious, and go check it out. But it's one of those things where Wild looked promising, open world game, you can control animals, you can go into all sorts of like Native American style spiritualism stuff. It looked pretty badass, but they only really shown one trailer for it. Another thing with Ubisoft is that they've just staved off their takeover from Vivendi, so they don't need to have as many big things. They can kind of play it as more confidently, rather than getting everybody on the stage and being like, we're a happy family, don't care.
What if Vivendi actually stage a takeover on stage? Like they're done with the hostile corporate stuff. They just get on stage, stormtrooper style.
They could do.
You know what? The way Ubisoft conferences go, you wouldn't know if that was a bit or not. You'd be like, what is happening? Is this real?
As long as they're dressed like dancers, everyone will just take it as that's what happens. Another thing they got leaked ahead of time, or at least they showed like a teaser for, was The Division 2. Now that game's reputation has been kind of up and down. It's been one of the things that we played a lot of and we want to see succeed more, but it just didn't land as much as they needed it to.
The thing for me with that is that Tom Clancy titles always base themselves on an air of realism. Obviously, it's not like anything like an Arma 3 or whatever, but they were always based on realism. I think the Tom Clancy brand was a wrong decision to go with The Division because it's got bullet sponges and RPG elements. I think maybe The Division would have worked better if they didn't have a Tom Clancy name to it. But whatever, they're making another one, so
and it lets them revisit the stuff that people didn't like, the bullet sponges, the kind of enemies that just didn't feel fun to engage with. It was very basic AI scripting with that. It didn't really seem to take off as much as they kind of needed it to. Watch Dogs, do we think that's existing anymore? I think it's done.
Yeah, I think it's coming back because the second one didn't sell anywhere near as well as the first one, and obviously the first one garnered a lot of bad blood after that.
True.
Shut the bed. But then Watch Dogs 2 was really good. The characters, you could say, were annoying, but like the core gameplay, they sort of finally nailed it, and going down a more comedic route, I think, was what the series needed from the beginning.
Are they still trying to set that up with Assassin's Creed, or is that...
I think
I wish they would.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
a whole shared universe that links everything Ubisoft related, and Watch Dogs would make sense, but it's one of those things where 2 kind of righted the ship, but I just don't think people care.
I think if it does come back, it might not be this year. I think they'll take another year to sort of make sure it's really good, because they want that franchise back up to like on the level of their other ones. They want that to be sort of a flagship, and I think if you come back now, it might be a bit too soon. You need to give people time to breathe. You need to have a good showing, and I don't think it'll be there because I think Ubisoft will focus on games that are already released.
True.
I think they have made a great reputation for themselves as expanding on games that might have had a bit of a slow start, like Siege has become just the best thing of all time.
Segue.
Even Wildlands, they're dedicated to expanding on that and making that a bigger thing. They introduced like multiplayer, PvP, Predators for some reason.
That was
One.
dead fun, to be fair.
Predator.
That thing was a bullet sponge, but it was fun. It had the
was very well
in it and
done.
everything.
In terms of the amount of effort put into a DLC, it was very well done. Let's talk a little bit about Siege, because they seem to be expanding that as a platform of content, but in the best way possible. You guys play it pretty much nightly, and it's a very, very, very solid tactile shooter.
Honestly, brilliant. I'm kind of curious to try out these new operators that come out this Thursday. Maestro and the hologram person. Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they do with that, because they keep on expanding the platform, and for me, the game just keeps on getting better. They're very, very receptive to the community. They're eliminating drop shotting finally. Fantastic. They're taking out tower from rotation of rank now, so like they're constantly listening to the community and applying changes, and for me that's the best model for a multiplayer game. Other shooters should take note.
I think Ubisoft, like alongside, everyone gives Ubisoft a bad name in terms of how much they drag out sequels and reuse engines and stuff, but they've happened on a really good formula with expanding the things that they've got out. Like the Division, Ghost Recon, Siege have all had such meaningful expansions, and for the most part they've been very consumer friendly. Like they've all been free, and they've only really charged for like additional cosmetics and things like that. It's a great model, and I kind of want them to showcase that a little bit more and be like, here's a whole load of stuff coming to Siege, but in a really intelligent, consumer-friendly way. That's what
makes me excited for the Division 2 if it is real, because that was the original game was the first sort of project they really tried to expand upon and try to make better post-release, and like were really dedicated to, and they sort of didn't succeed with it. Like they tried, but like the community sort of had like a backlash to it, and then they made it a bit better, but it just wasn't as confident as their approach to Siege, which I think they've nailed with listening to feedback, listening to the community, doing what they want. So I think taking that into account, they could make a really good Division 2 and support it for the long run.
And I think that tactical side of Siege might factor into Spies vs. Mercs or the Splinter Cell multiplayer mode.
Would be really cool. They could totally build a platform like the Siege's formula of having certain maps and then having a competitive multiplayer to it. Obviously, Spies vs. Mercs, one of the best things about it on Xbox 360 was grabbing someone and then whispering in their ear so you can go to sleep. But yeah, I don't know. I'm really excited to see what Ubisoft could do with their titles in this post-Siege reality, because I do think that game has genuinely changed the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it continues to be on Steam's most played list, so it's one of their biggest successes and most recent successes. The only other thing that we had down was Far Cry expansions, Far Cry 5 DLC.
They got the Vietnam one coming out at the moment, haven't they? And then they got another.
You got another two. They got one on Mars, one with zombies. They've got some wacky stuff.
They might do something with that as part of their press conference, but I think they'll probably just end up leaving it. Their big takeaways are obviously Assassin's Creed and hopefully Splinter Cell.
I bet you're going to get one of the cultists out and just get them going around to everyone.
At least it would be another cringy Ubisoft moment, because what is an E3 Ubisoft conference without something ridiculous?
Would rather not have one at all if they don't have at least one cringy moment.
What is the point?
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. But you guys can let us know what you think down in the comments below. What are you excited to see and what do you want to see confirmed? Ivan Scott from occulture.com.
Oh, we didn't know which one was going to go there.
I know, as I went into that, I was like, no, we don't know.
Yeah.
Ivan Scott from occulture.com.
I've been Josh from whatculture.com.
I've been Ewan from whatculture.com.
I'll catch you soon.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.